All right, let's dive right into this explainer and unpack one of the most mind-bending, frankly frustrating concepts in modern philosophy, Jacques Derrida's différance. If you've ever felt like words just can't quite capture what you're actually trying to say, or that communication always feels, I don't know, a little incomplete, you're actually already tapping into the exact philosophical puzzle we're going to explore today. We're going to try and visualize something that literally exists to resist being pinned down. To make this accessible, we're going to peel this onion layer by layer. We'll hit the myth of fixed meaning, structuralist linguistics, the double meaning of différer, the ghost of the trace, speech versus writing, and finally, the end of fixed origins. So, part 1. The myth of fixed meaning. We need to start by looking at a super comfortable assumption pretty much all of us share about how communication works. Have you ever tried to track down the ultimate pure meaning of a single word? We all kind of assume words are like little Tupperware containers, right? You pop the lid, put a solid piece of meaning inside, and just hand it over to someone else when you speak. But think about what actually happens when you try to pin it down. It's like getting stuck in a loop. You look up word A in a dictionary, and the dictionary uses word B to explain it. Okay, so you look up word B, which points you to word C, and eventually word C just tosses you right back to word A. You're trapped. The pure meaning keeps getting pushed away. It's a game of endless referrals. This exact everyday trap is what obsessed Derrida. Which brings us to part 2, origins in structuralist linguistics. To really get Derrida's solution to this infinite dictionary loop, we have to rewind a bit to early 20th century linguistics, specifically a guy named Ferdinand de Saussure. Saussure said linguistic signs are purely differential. Basically, the spoken word tree has absolutely no magical positive connection to actual bark and leaves. It only means what it does because it doesn't sound like three, or free, or true. Think of it like a cookie cutter. The cutter itself is empty. It creates a shape entirely through negative space, by cutting out what it isn't. Language works exactly the same way. Now, Derrida totally accepts this setup, but then he takes it to the absolute extreme. He says, look, if meaning only comes from being different from other words, then there's no transcendental signified. That's just a heavy philosophical term for a final, fixed meaning that lives outside this web of language. There is no ultimate reality check outside the dictionary loop. It's just relationships, all the way down. All right, part 3. The double meaning of différer. This is the absolute climax of our explainer. In 1968, Derrida pulls off this brilliant linguistic heist with a deliberate typo. On the left, we have the normal French word for difference, spelled with an E. On the right, we have Derrida's custom-built version, différance, spelled with an A. The kicker? When you speak French aloud, that A is literally inaudible. They sound identical. You only catch the joke if you're reading it visually on a page. Why do this? Well, it goes back to the root French verb, différer. This single verb is doing double duty. It operates on 2 totally different tracks at the exact same time, and Derrida wanted a noun that captured both actions at once. So différance captures a double operation. First, to differ. That's spatial distinctness. A cat is not a dog, right? But the second meaning is to defer, as in to delay in time. Because a word only means something by constantly referring to other words, the final arrival of that meaning is always pushed back. It's exactly like tracking a package that just keeps bouncing from warehouse to warehouse. You're tracking it, it's definitely moving, but it never actually hits your front porch. Because of this infinite loop, there's no single moment of pure self-contained presence. You can never just hold the meaning in your hand. Meaning is always on the move. It is always already defer. Part 4. The ghost of the trace. This constant spatial and temporal movement creates something pretty spooky. Since a word gets its meaning by not being other words, those other words leave a kind of phantom imprint behind. Derrida calls this the trace. Think of a footprint on a sandy beach. It indicates presence, someone walked there, but it does so entirely through absence. The sand has been pushed away. That footprint is a trace. Because of this, no sign is ever purely just itself. Every word you speak is haunted by the ghosts of the words it isn't. When you say the word light, that concept is fundamentally haunted by the trace of darkness. You literally can't have the presence of one without the lingering absence of the other. It completely shatters the illusion that a word can just chill in perfect isolation. Moving on to part 5, speech versus writing. Derrida takes all of this and uses it to blow up a massive ancient bias in Western thought called phonocentrism. For thousands of years, philosophers from Plato on down believed speech was the absolute gold standard. They thought speaking delivered pure presence and truth directly from one mind to another. Writing, though, they were super suspicious of it. They saw writing as secondary, a cheap, fallen copy of speech, just a stand-in for when the speaker couldn't be there in person. But remember that deliberate typo from earlier, the A in différance? This is Derrida springing his trap. Because that A is completely silent when spoken, if you only listened to his lecture, you'd completely miss the core of his philosophy. It only appears in writing. By making his most profound philosophical point rely entirely on a written joke, he completely demolished the idea that speech is superior. Speech is just as tangled up in deferrals as writing is. Which brings us to our final section, part 6, the end of fixed origins. If you look at the heavyweights, Plato, Rousseau, Husserl, Heidegger, even Saussure, despite fighting about pretty much everything else, they all shared one huge assumption, what Derrida calls the metaphysics of presence. They all believed meaning needed a stable origin. God, truth, the pure spoken word, a fixed starting point. Derrida looks at all of them and says, nope. If meaning is always deferred, that stable starting point never actually existed. And we're left with this completely dizzying reality. Différance is the very thing that makes meaning possible, but it's also the exact thing that makes a final, complete meaning impossible. You need the dictionary to find the word, but the dictionary is exactly what keeps pushing the word away from you. That's why Derrida flat out refused to define it positively. He explicitly said it's neither a word nor a concept, because the moment you try to neatly box it up and label it, you're breaking its one rule of constant motion. It is an ongoing, fluid operation, not a fixed thing. So I'm going to leave you with this to ponder. If meaning is constantly in motion, haunted by the ghosts of what it isn't, and never actually arrives at your front door, how does that change the way you communicate right now? Because when we finally drop the illusion of fixed origins, we realize the search for meaning is an endless, fascinating journey. And honestly, that journey never truly ends.